Welcome to Double Portion Inheritance with Maria Merola and Gary Wold, brought to you by DoublePortionInheritance.com. Since 1981, Maria heard the call of Yahuwah to become a watchman to the house of Yisrael and to those within the traditional Christian church. She was instructed to warn them against the false doctrines and pagan traditions of men. After 25 years of studying Scripture, the word of Yahuwah came to Maria again in 2007 as she was called out of the corporate world to become a full-time intercessor and prophetic teacher. The name of the ministry, Double Portion Inheritance, was given to her after she received the revelation of the two houses of Yisrael from Ezekiel 37:16. The mission of this ministry is to bring together the stick of Judah and the stick of Joseph for the return of the Messiah, Yahushua. And now, Maria Merola.
Who is the beast of Revelation 13? Now, this is a very much a truncated teaching. I have a much longer one called 14 Identifiers of the Beast, which I go into a lot of detail. But this one is just kind of a brief overview. In light of what's going on this past couple weeks with the Queen of England passing away and with Prince Charles now being crowned as King of Wales, a lot of people are speculating that Prince Charles or King Charles is the Antichrist, So here's what I'd like to say. The word "the" is never used in front of the word Antichrist. We see the word Antichrist or Anti-Mashiach in Scripture. Let's see. 1 John 2:18 says, "Little children, it is the last time, and as you have heard that Antichrist shall come." There's no word "the" in front of that, okay? Antichrist shall come. Even now, are there many antichrists, anti-messiahs, right? Whereby we know it is the last time. So right there, we're told there's many. There's not just one antichrist. Everyone's looking for one single guy who's going to be the antichrist, right? 1 John 2:22. Who is a liar but he that denies that Yahushua is the Mashiach? He is anti-Messiah that denies the Father and the Son. Now, we know there's plenty of those people that deny the Father and the Son. So, obviously, there's more than one anti-Messiah because there's tons of people who deny the Father and the Son. 1 John 4:3 says, "And every spirit that confesses not that Yahushua HaMashiach is come in the flesh is not of Elohim." And this is that spirit of anti-Mashiach, whereof you have heard that it shall come. And even now, already is it in the world. Now, the Gnostics, they were the people that, the doctrine of the Essenes. The Essenes were deeply into Gnosticism. They didn't believe in they didn't believe that Messiah came as an apparition, that he was just he was like a spiritual vision, that he didn't actually come in the flesh. They don't believe that he actually was crucified or that, he died and resurrected. They believe it was like watching a movie. The whole thing was just a vision or an apparition. Okay, so they are of the spirit of anti-Mashiach. This is why I don't trust the book of Enoch. Is there stuff in the book of Enoch we can glean that, is historical? Yeah, I'm sure there is, but it's not to be treated as scripture. The book of Enoch is not inspired scripture. There are too many things in the book of Enoch that contradicts the 66 books of scripture. So we just, if you're going to read it with a grain of salt, because the Essenes were into Gnosticism. They didn't believe in rescuing their animal out of a ditch if it fell in the ditch on the Sabbath day. They were ultra strict. They believed that couples shouldn't enjoy intimacy. This is why the Apostle Paul warned us against them in 1 Timothy chapter 4 when he said that they forbid the eating of meat. They were strictly vegetarian. They believed in keeping a vegetarian Passover. They didn't even believe in eating lamb for Passover. They didn't believe couples should enjoy intimacy. They should just, do it strictly for procreation purposes only. They believed that we weren't allowed to have any pleasures in the flesh at all, that anything that we enjoyed that was pleasurable to the flesh was a sin. They're like the Catholic Church was in days gone by, where they would, say that priests and nuns aren't allowed to get married. They were very much like that. Very, very legalistic, very letter of the law. Okay. And so they are of that spirit of anti-Messiah. They did not believe that Messiah Yahushua was Elohim come in the flesh. 2 John 1:7 says, "For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Yahushua Mashiach is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an anti-Mashiach." Okay, so we see the word anti-Messiah, but it never uses the word the. So when people say the Antichrist, there's been other anti-Messiah leaders of the past. There's been Nimrod. His name in Chaldean adds up to 666. There's been Nebuchadnezzar. His name adds up to 666. Nero Caesar, Antiochus Epiphanes. He gave himself the title Epiphany. Epiphany is a Greek word that means God manifest. It's sort of the equivalent of Emmanuel, God with us, and in Hebrew is Emmanuel. But he gave himself the title, Epiphany, which that's a Greek word that has a numerical value of 666. Nero Caesar, his name also added up to 666 in Hebrew gematria. So there have been other anti-messiahs. So let's talk about who is the beast of Revelation 13. So in the 13th chapter of the book of Revelation, it describes two beasts. The first beast in Revelation 13:1 is described as follows. It says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy." So here, Daniel saw the beast. This is just kind of an artist's depiction of what it might have looked like, what his vision might have looked like. In Daniel's prophecy, it was explained to him by the heavenly messenger that a beast is a nation or an empire. Okay, so whenever we see the word beast, we must understand it's not limited to an individual. Sure, there will be an individual called the beast, one individual, the man of sin, who's going to sit in the temple of Elohim and declare himself to be Elohim. There will be that man of sin. Sure, there will be that little horn. He also will be called the beast because he's the leader of the beast. But the word beast is also describing the kingdom or the empire, the end time empire that's going to rule the whole world. And for 3.5 years, this end time beast is going to have all the nations bowing in obedience. And so the thing that we not understand is that when Abraham was told that his descendants would be more numerous than the sands on the seashore, that is what is being described here, that the beast rose up out of the sea. Okay, that represents Europe, the European nations. Because why? In Revelation 17:5, we're told that the sea represents peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So when the apostle Yahuchanan John said that he saw, that it says he stood upon the sand of the sea and he saw a beast rise up out of the sea is referring to the nations, peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So the beast rises up out of the nations, plural, not just one nation, but out of the nations, plural, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Well, in Revelation 17:9, we're told the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. So this is the Vatican City. And now the reason, and I know some people say, oh, Mecca in the Middle East is surrounded by 7 mountains. I've heard that even Washington, D.C. is surrounded by 7 mountains because Washington, D.C. used to be called Rome in the 1700s, or in the 1500s, I should say. But if you look it up in the dictionary and also in the Encyclopedia Britannica, the official title for the Vatican is the Vatican City proper, the 7 hills of Rome. So the Vatican City is the one that is most famously given the moniker the 7 hills. Okay. So the Vatican City is the most prominent when it comes to the 7 hills. In fact, the Greek word there for mountains is oros in Greek, and that word means elevation. So it doesn't really matter that the English translators use the word mountains or hills, because, hills or mountains, they both mean the same thing, elevation. Okay. But people try to split hairs and say, oh, well, that's 7 hills. That's not 7 mountains. Just means elevation, right? So the first beast in Revelation 13:1 arose out of the European nations called the Holy Roman Empire. But also the Roman Empire ruled over the Islamic nations called the Ottoman Empire. That's why Daniel was shown, or it was Nebuchadnezzar who was shown in a dream, and then Daniel was given the interpretation of that dream about the image of the man that had the head of gold. The head of gold was Babylon. The chest of silver was Medo Persia, and then the hips and thighs of brass was Greece, and then the 2 iron legs was Rome, and then the 10 toes made partly of clay and partly of iron. Those are the 10 horns. Those are the 10 nations that are going to rule for 1 hour with the beast in the end of days. Okay, now in 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte dethroned the papal government of the Vatican City, causing the beast to suffer a deadly wound to its authority, or its head. Now, now, of course, the papacy still existed. It's just that it wasn't recognized by the United Nations as a sovereign nation. But the Vatican City now today is a separate nation entirely from Italy. Even though its location is in Rome, Vatican City has its own flag and its own separate king. It's a separate nation entirely from Italy. So Napoleon put a stop to that. Then in 1871, America was sold to the Vatican City Bank by the United States Congress. Since that time, every United States president has been an extension of the Pope of Rome. People need to understand that. In fact, you can go to the link here. If you read the blog, it says the United States becomes a foreign corporation in 1871. This is precisely why the Jesuits assassinated Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln knew that the Jesuits of Rome were about to take over America and that the Civil War was a distraction to divide and conquer. You can read the whole story at this book by Chick Publications called The Big Betrayal. Also, another link I provided here, the Jesuit connection to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. So ever since 1871, every United States president visits the Pope wearing all black to signify that they are in submission to him. Meanwhile, the Pope wears all white to signify that he is supposedly the substitute for Christ on earth. Okay? The official title of a Pope in Latin is Vicarius Filii Dei, which means substitute for the Son of God. It has the numerical value of 666. Every pope is given a triple crown tiara upon being sworn into office. This crown bears the title Vicarius Filii Dei. This is the name of blasphemy that all the popes have on their heads, plural. All the popes of Rome have the name of blasphemy on their heads. Okay, and here it is. You see the crown. I don't know if you can see it, but if you look really close, you can see the engraving. It says Vicarius Filii Dei. You can see it engraved in the crown. And the numeric value, the word vicarius means substitute in place of, that's the word antichrist literally means substitute for Christ. People think the word antichrist means against Christ. Well, it can mean that, but that's a secondary definition. The primary definition of anti means instead of, in place of. Okay. Growing up, in an Italian family, we used to eat something called antipasto before we had our main course. We had a plate of cheeses and meats and olives and things like that. You go to any Italian restaurant, they offer, on the menu in their appetizer section, antipasto. Antipasto means instead of pasta. Instead of pasta. It doesn't mean against pasta. It means instead of pasta. Okay, so the word anti means instead of. Okay, and then there's the word filii, which means son. That has a numeric value of 53. And then de, which means God in Latin, adds up to 501. So when you add these three values together, 112 plus 53 plus 501 comes to 666. So the beast with the names of blasphemy upon his heads is the papacy. Okay, they were in charge spiritually over the Holy Roman Empire. But then in 1929, the Lateran Treaty, which was officiated by Mussolini, was signed. 10 European nations agreed. And this is when the deadly wound of the papacy was healed. According to scripture, the deadly wound that Napoleon caused was healed by Mussolini in 1929. In fact, the San Francisco Chronicle even published this on Tuesday, February 12th, 1929. It literally says Mussolini and Gaspari sign historic Roman pact. You can see it says heal wound of many years. Vatican again at peace with Italy after long quarrel. So even the newspapers recognized that the deadly wound of the papacy was being healed at that time. Okay? Interesting. All right. So as a matter of fact, like I said, newspapers all over the world said deadly wound of the papacy now healed after many years. It wasn't just the San Francisco Chronicle. It was lots of other newspapers reiterating this prophecy. So the 10 horns on this empirical beast are the 10 European nations who agreed with Mussolini in 1929 to restore sovereignty to the papacy, allowing the Vatican City to be counted among the United Nations as both a church and a state. In other words, a separate country from Italy with its own flag and its own king. Now, in Revelation 13:11, we see another beast, a second beast that rises up from the earth. In other words, out of nothing, America became a nation. See, before the indigenous peoples, the Native Americans were here. By the way, King Solomon brought them here on ships. And I talk about that in this blog called about the Cherokee. There's evidence for that. Talks about this in the book of Esdras, which is an apocrypha book. And like I said, I don't have a problem with using the apocrypha books for historic, value, but I don't treat those books as inspired scripture. But so this prophecy is describing a second beast that rises up out of the earth. The earth meaning that there was nothing here, but it was just a wasteland until it became a nation. America had been a barren wasteland. This beast has two horns. Now, remember, I already said Daniel tells us that a horn is a political power. Well, how did they anoint kings in ancient times? They would take a ram's horn, the horn of a ram or an animal that was hollow. It was hollow. They would fill it up with olive oil and they would pour that oil over the head of the king that was to be anointed. So this is why the word horn symbolizes political powers or nations, kings.
If you're not sure about that, see the ordination of Saul.
Yeah.
Right.
And King David too. Yeah.
Yep.
So the second beast has two horns. This is two political powers. America is just like Imperial Rome. It's a republic and a democracy at the same time. It's also a church. It's also a church and a state. In the 1700s, Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, was called Rome, Maryland, owned by a man named Francis Pope. That's true. His name was Francis Pope. In fact, and there's two links you can go to. Washington was originally named Rome. Francis Pope, originally the landowner of Washington, D.C. Giorgio Bergoglio, which is Pope Francis's real name, chose the name Francis on purpose. He was giving out a sign. He was letting us know that his name, Francis Pope, was to remind us of, his name, Pope Francis, was to remind us of this guy, Francis Pope. He was giving us a sign that he's the Jesuit in charge of America and that the United States presidents have to answer to him. Okay. After 1871, America became the new Rome, owned by the Vatican City Bank and the Bank of London, the Rothschilds. Now, most people don't realize the Rothschilds, they're not of British pedigree. They are really Germanic, but they assimilated into British culture and disguised themselves as Brits, but they're really of Germanic descent. Okay. There's 13 Illuminati families who run the world, and the Rothschilds are one of those 13 families. Now, ever since that time, all of the United States presidents are ruling in proxy of the Pope of Rome. As a matter of fact, every United States president has been genetically related to either King Edward or Pope Charlemagne. Charlemagne became a pope in the year 800. He ruled over the Holy Roman Empire. All United States presidents are chosen by these 13 Illuminati families of Europe. We don't have elections in the United States. They're a scam to give us the illusion that we are choosing our own presidents. We are not choosing our presidents. The 13 Illuminati families choose the presidents, not us. Okay. The Latin word for pope is papa, meaning father. The etymology for the word president literally means to sit in front of. In other words, in the sight of. Okay. So in Revelation 13:14, it says that the second beast exercises all the power of the first beast, right? Exercises all the power of the first beast. Let's go there real quick. Revelation 13. So Revelation 13:14, it says, verse 12, excuse me. The second beast, which is America, it looks like a lamb, right? Like, America likes to think of itself as a Christian nation. Certainly the Pilgrims, and we know that, many of our forefathers had intentions for America to become a Bible believing nation. So it's like a lamb, but what? It speaks like a dragon. What does that mean? Because our government was founded on the principles of Freemasonry. So even though America purports to be a Christian nation, our government is founded on the principles of Freemasonry, which is Lucifer. So even when they use Christian terminology, even when they say, all these presidents say I'm born again, they don't mean born again the way our Messiah was describing to Nicodemus. They mean born again in a totally different context.
Yeah, they have a different language and a different meaning for these things. It's like looking at your little orphan Annie decoder ring, right? They use the popular speak that we speak, but they've got their understood understanding, so they can agree with our terms while diverting definitions,
right,
for sinister purposes.
I remember back in the 80s watching George H.W. Bush being interviewed by David Frost. And David Frost asked him if he was a Christian. He said, yes, I am a born-again Christian. He called himself a born-again Christian, but we know that George H.W. Bush was not a true Bible believer in any sense of the word. He was totally part of the Bohemian Grove. Even his son, George W. Bush, they were both part of the Bohemian Grove. They were part of the Skull and Bones. Their bloodline traces back to Hitler in Germany. When a Freemason says, "I am born again," they're talking about being born again into the light of Lucifer. They believe Lucifer. If you want to go with me to Isaiah 14, excuse me, Isaiah 14. The King James Version says in Isaiah 14:12, "Oh, how are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer." Now, that word Lucifer is a Latin word, but in the Hebrew, it's Halel. Okay, Halel is the name of a fallen angel. Halel, how are you fallen from heaven, O Halel, son of the morning? Now, the King James Version gets this part right. Son of the morning. But all these other versions mistranslate this as morning star. Lucifer is not the morning star. If this was supposed to say morning star, the Hebrew would say Boker Kokab, morning star, Boker Kokab. It doesn't say Boker Kokab. It says Halel, son of the morning, Ben Shakar. Ben Shakar means son of the morning. Because why? Halel, the fallen angel Halel, was a created being. Created by who? Messiah Yahushua, who is the morning star. He's the morning star. But you see, these other modern translations deliberately are meant to deceive by calling Lucifer the morning star. And because the Catholic Bible was taken from the Greek Old Testament, the Septuagint, and then Constantine hired this guy Eusebius to take the Greek Septuagint, which came from Alexandria, Egypt, and he translated that into the Latin Vulgate. They changed this to say uh, morning star instead of son of the morning. And because of that, the Catholic Church believes and teaches that Lucifer, Jesus, I'm using their vernacular, Jesus came to earth as a reincarnation of Lucifer. So they believe that our Messiah, Yahushua, who they call Jesus, fell from heaven, and then he comes to earth as a reincarnation of Lucifer. And then after he dies on the cross, and then he goes into the lower parts of the earth, they believe he went there to suffer as a sinner, and that he paid for his crimes, that Lucifer / Jesus, this is what they believe, that he paid for his crimes by suffering in hell, and now he resurrected, and Lucifer is back on the throne again. This is their twisted theology. This is their twisted theology. So when Freemasons say, "Oh, I'm born again," they don't mean born again the way you and I mean born again. They mean it in a completely different context. They mean they're being born again. They're born again into the light of Lucifer.
And not to get off too far, but
Norman
Vincent Peale,
right,
who Donald Trump says is his
pastor and
mentor.
Mm-hmm.
All these years, multiple times in multiple interviews, this guy, again, as you mentioned, was interviewed by Phil Donahue, and he talked about there being many paths to Christ.
Well, he said many paths to God is what he said.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. This artist depiction is a depiction of the second beast, which is America. And you see the lamb with the two horns, and he speaks like a dragon. So he's got a forked tongue. Okay. And you see the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty is really an ancient statue of the Queen of Heaven, right? Which the prophet Jeremiah rebuked the nation of Israel for worshiping the Queen of Heaven. She's got other names too, like Columbia. That's why Washington, D.C. is named the District of Columbia, right? So America is, the two horns, the two political horns that, looks like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon, okay? So in Revelation chapter 14, when it talks about that the beast, the second beast, exercises all the power of the first beast, Revelation 13:12, it's talking about America exercising all the power of Rome, the first beast before him. Now, and it says, and he causes the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast. This is why all the presidents go to the Vatican wearing all black and the Pope's wearing white, because he's supposed to signify that he's the substitute for Christ. So all the presidents cause the people of the earth to worship the papacy, the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. The papacy's deadly wound was healed in 1929. And then it talks about the second beast, meaning America. He does great wonders so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, you know. Now, there's lots of different ways that can be fulfilled. I believe that's talking about satellites. I believe that's talking about Space Force that Trump put together, these unnatural California fires where, you can see the whole house is burnt to a crisp, but the surrounding trees and plants are untouched. The cars are untouched. These unnatural fires that don't look like they were caused by natural causes. It's been proven that they have what's called directed energy weapons, that they can target certain areas and cause fires in those areas. Okay. And it says that he deceives them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles. Now, how was this fulfilled? Well, in December of 2020, on the winter solstice, Donald Trump said that it was a great Christmas miracle. This was recorded in the newspaper. He said it was a great Christmas miracle that he and his administration were able to develop a V. And I have to use that word V because otherwise, if I use the full word, they're going to take down my video. YouTube will take down my video. So he uses this phrase, Christmas miracle. Let me see if I can find it. Christmas. He uses the word Christmas miracle. Here it is. He does great miracles, in the sight of men. He claims that this V that he and his team, his administration, developed in 1 year. He said nobody else could have done it. It would have taken years to develop this medicine, but the Trump administration did it. Calls it a great Christmas miracle, right? So he does miracles, great miracles, deceives them by means of those miracles, deceiving people, making them think that this medicine is a miracle, okay? Which he had power to do in the sight of. Now, pay attention to this phrase, in the sight of, okay? Because I'm going to show you what this word in the sight of means, in the sight of the beast, okay? The first beast, meaning the papacy. In the sight of. Let's look at the word president in the dictionary. It means to preside over, to sit in front of. So, in other words, every United States president sits in front of the first beast, the papacy. In other words, the president of the United States is the front man for the papacy. He's the one everybody sees. Just like Hitler. Hitler was the monster that was in charge of the World War II. He was the mouthpiece. He was the one doing all the talking and all the shouting, making all the noise. Very few people understood who was really the puppet master behind Hitler. It was Pope Pius. Okay. It's the same thing with the presidents of the United States. Okay. So now, to preside over or to sit in front of, in the sight of. What does this phrase mean? In the Greek concordance, in the sight of comes from this word, enopian. Enopian means in the face of or in the presence of. This means that every United States president must come face to face with the Pope of Rome. And according to the secret blood oaths of the Jesuits, nobody is allowed to have a face-to-face visit with a pope unless they acknowledge him as the visible image of Jesus Christ on earth. The root word for enopian is number 3,700 in the Greek. It's optanomai, which means to gaze with eyes wide open at something remarkable. I remember George W. Bush going to visit Pope Benedict, and somebody was interviewing George Bush in the news, and they said, "What was it like to meet the Pope face to face?" He said, "When I looked into his eyes, I saw the face of God." This was George W. Bush that said this, right? I mean, it was sickening. I literally wanted to gag when he said this, okay? Proving that George W. Bush was no born-again Christian, okay? But that's what this word means, to gaze with eyes wide open at something remarkable. This means that every U.S. president must visit the Pope at the Vatican, looking to him as the supposed substitute for Christ. This is why the presidents and their wives wear black while the Pope wears white. This is meant to signify that they are inferior to the Pope. And then finally, there's the last root word, en, which is number 1722 in the Greek concordance. It's intermediate. It means between, to give oneself wholly to. This means that every U.S. president is acting as a mediator to the Pope of Rome. They stand in proxy of the Pope of Rome as they wholly are given over to his authority. And I created a graphic here so you see that when it says that the second beast exercises all the power of the first beast, the papacy, right? In the sight of the beast, he does miracles in the sight of the beast. The word means in the sight of, means that in the face of or in the presence of, but it also means as an intermediate. In other words, he stands in proxy. He's doing these things instead of the Pope so that everybody thinks that, the president is doing these things of his own accord. No, he's not. Okay. And I created this graphic. It says the Roman papal beast always has his front man doing his dirty work for him. And here you have on July 21st, 1933, Pope Pius XII met with Adolf Hitler to sign the Reichskonkordat Act, which would give Hitler free rein to annihilate Jews in Germany, thus giving rise to a Jewish state for the end-time papal beast to rule in Jerusalem. That's been the goal since Constantine, the Roman emperor, in the 4th century. Constantine has been trying to take over Jerusalem. He wanted Jerusalem all to himself. Satan wants to put his seat there because he knows that that's the place where Yahuwah has chosen to place his name. So Satan, Hasatan, believes if he can sit there where Yahuwah has chosen to place his name, that he can take the place of Yahuwah, that he can take the place of Mashiach. He actually is stupid enough to think he can do that. Okay. It says Hitler annihilated 6 million Jews in Nazi prison camps between 1941 and 1945. Okay. That was 4 years, approximately the same as the Great Tribulation, 3.5 years. Now, here we have on May 24th, 2017, Pope Francis presented President Trump with a copy of his encyclical on climate change. This is just another polite way of saying the depopulation agenda to reduce the world's population down by 95%. Only 5% of the current population they want to reduce it down by 5% to 5%. In other words, 95% of the people must go.
And politically, that's the same as looking at, you see Twitter, different posts, all these hashtags, Agenda 2020 and Agenda 2030. Those are stepping stones, which are the exact same thing as this depopulation.
Yeah, they call it Agenda 2021. Okay, so this is the same thing as Operation, Warp Speed. I mean, it's the same thing. Okay, so people need to understand, but people think that Trump's an outsider. Oh, he's not one of them. No, he's not Illuminati. No, he's taking down the cabal. No, listen, it's a big act. The German Christians thought Hitler was a great guy. They thought he was doing great things for Germany. But we know how it ended. And in fact, Trump's wife, Ivana, who just recently died, his first wife, she said he kept copies of Hitler's speeches on his nightstand. And before he went to bed, he would read Hitler's speeches. He would read Hitler's book, Mein Kampf. So you see, the news media and, those Illuminati families have done an excellent job of marketing him in a completely different light so that people don't see. Okay. But if you have spiritual eyes to see, you will see. Okay. Revelation 17:10 through 11 tells us that there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he shall continue a short space. And the 8th, he is of the 7, and shall go into perdition. So what does this mean? Well, the Greek word for king is basileus. Basileus means a base of power. Thus, the word king can also mean a kingdom, an empire, or a nation, not merely an individual king. So this prophecy is describing 7 empires or kingdoms in history. First, there was Egypt. Then there was Assyria. Then Babylon was number 3. Medo-Persia was 4. Greece was 5. Rome was 6. Great Britain was 7. And now America became a superpower in 1945. America is the 8th kingdom. Okay. And remember, in Daniel's prophecy, he saw a lion, right? The lion had wings, 2 wings. The 2 wings represented the lion is Great Britain. The symbol of the lion is Great Britain. The 2 wings were removed from the lion because after the Revolutionary War, America left, had its wings removed from the lion. The lion had its wings removed because America detached itself from Great Britain. But then in 1871, it doesn't matter because, see, the Rothschild family, who were, part of the Roman Empire, right? Because their family's really from Germany, but they pretended to be, British, right? They were working for the Jesuits of Rome undercover under the guise of being British. But the Bank of London and the Vatican City Bank took America as their own. And it's been like that since 1871. Okay. And they did it through the Civil War. They weakened America. And they weakened America to the point where we were almost bankrupt and we had no choice. The United States Congress sold America off to the Bank of London and the Vatican City Bank. Okay. Now, this prophecy has a secondary fulfillment. Even though the 7 kings are talking about 7 empires or kingdoms, it's also talking about 7 literal kings. Okay. What this prophecy is telling us is that the 8th kingdom on earth, America, will be from the previous 7 kingdoms. So in other words, the New World Order is going to be 7 previous kingdoms, 7 previous empires are going to come together to form a one world empire, a one world government, okay, a one world economy, a one world religion. And see, the Abraham Accords that Trump signed in August 13th, 2020, that is enabling Pope Francis to do what he's doing now with his one world religion. So Pope Francis is officiating the spiritual or religious part. That makes him like, the false prophet. Trump is officiating the military or the political part. So Trump's part is the political and Pope Francis's part is the religious. But they're working in tandem together. They're working to bring about the New World Order. Okay. So this prophecy is telling us that the eighth kingdom on earth, America, will be from the previous seven kingdoms. The phrase, and the eighth is of the seven and shall go into perdition, means that the eighth world empire will be comprised of the seven former empires. Now, this word perdition means, destruction. Perdition means to be lost, spiritually lost, right? In other words, the eighth world superpower, which has been America since 1945, will have characteristics that are similar to the previous seven empires. It also means that these other previous empires will rule as 10 kings for 1 hour with the beast. So all these previous empires are going to, all the 10 kings, there's going to be 10 regions. The earth is going to be divided up into 10 regions, and there will be 10 kings that will rule for 1 hour with the beast. Revelation 17:12 says, and the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. Okay, in addition to the United States of America being the eighth kingdom on earth, Pope Francis is also the eighth pope since 1929. So here's a graphic. I will make it a little bit bigger if I can. It's showing since 1929, Pope Pius the 11th, and all the popes leading up to Pope Francis, who became, now notice he became Pope March 13th, 2013, 13 and 13. What does that tell you, right? The Illuminati, they like the number 13 because there's 13 Illuminati families. And they're the ones ruling the world. In Freemasonry, they tend to do things all the time on the 13th day of the month. This is why Trump signed the Abraham Accords on August 13th. March 13th, 2020, Trump declared a national state of emergency because of the pandemic. So they like to do these things on the 13th. And it was 13th. It was not only March 13th, but it was the year 2013. Now, here's the thing. There's rumors that Pope Francis is going to step down, probably because, and I've done some research on this. I mean, this is the rumor mill. I can't prove it because a lot of these things are scrubbed from the internet. I used to be able to go to DuckDuckGo, and I used to be able to, look things up, and I can still find quite a few things on DuckDuckGo, even though it's owned by Google. But there's things you can find on DuckDuckGo that you can't find on Google. But Pope Francis was seen coming out of Jeffrey Epstein's, penthouse in New York City. Apparently, one of the maids who worked for Jeffrey Epstein said that Pope Francis used to come and go as he pleases from Jeffrey Epstein's penthouse, that he was very much involved with child trafficking. And I believe that Pope Francis, Trump has all this dirt on all these people, and he's blackmailing them, and he's going to take all these leaders down, but not because he's a good guy. It's because Trump wants to be the only leader. He's like a megalomaniac. He wants to be the only leader left. So what he's going to do is he's going to use all these crimes to blackmail people and take them all down one by one until he's the only one left standing. Okay. So Pope Francis, I believe that he could end up being prosecuted for crimes against children and humanity. There's rumors about that. There's also, indication that he's the first Jesuit to ever fill the office of a white pope. They have the black pope and they have the white pope. The white pope is the front man that we see that wears white. The black pope is the inspector general of the Jesuits. Well, Pope Francis is the first Jesuit to ever fill the office of a pope. But according to the rules of the Vatican, a white pope cannot be somebody from the Jesuit order. But for some reason, it was allowed. Well, there's rumor that they might end up disqualifying Pope Francis, that if he's forced to step down or if he resigns of his own accord, that he won't be counted as the eighth Pope. He'll be counted as someone who maybe didn't ever, his papacy was illegitimate. So therefore, he won't be counted as the eighth Pope. So then who would step in as the eighth Pope? Well, some people believe that there's going to be Peter the Roman. There's this guy named Saint Malachy from the 1400s who had these visions about the eighth, the last Pope, the 112th Pope, he says will be named Peter the Roman.
Are you getting that from Narnia?
Yeah, exactly. No. What's his name? C.S. Lewis. Yeah, C.S. Lewis was secretly a Jesuit of Rome. And in his Narnia Chronicles, he shows Peter the Roman. He shows Peter riding on a white horse on a unicorn. I've got a blog on that. Thanks for bringing that up, honey, because now I'm going to have to divert a little bit here.
Just in general, I'm having a chat with someone on the YouTube stream who's new to, the feasts and everything. If you don't know, you don't have to take our word for it, but just as a caution, stay away from all things C.S. Lewis unless you want to go down the rabbit hole so that you understand that it's not good.
Yeah. He definitely, let me see if I can find the Narnia. So I did a blog exposing the whole Narnia thing. Here we go. Prophecies of Saint Malachy, Peter the Roman, and Narnia. And so we see that during the movie of, the Narnia movie, I think this was year 2002, they were selling this statue of Peter riding on a white horse. The unicorn, the one horn right here, represents the little horn of Daniel's prophecy, right? The one world government, the one world religion. And you'll notice that Peter has the sword on his right arm. This is really an allusion to the prophecy of Zechariah chapter 11 about the idol shepherd. If you go to Zechariah chapter 11, let me see if I can find it. Zechariah 11. It talks about the idol shepherd. Let's see. Zechariah 11:17. It says, "Woe to the idol shepherd that leaves the flock." So in other words, he pretends to love Israel, but then he turns his back on Israel after a time. The sword shall be upon his arm, and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. This is why you always see these celebrities covering up one eye. Okay. This is why you always see, the all-seeing eye of Horus on the dollar bill. They're talking about the principles of Luciferianism. His right eye shall be utterly darkened. And what did our Messiah talk about? He talks about, that if a person's eye is full of light, that means that he's righteous. But if his eye is full of darkness, it means he's wicked. Okay. So don't be fooled by this whole Narnia thing. The whole Narnia thing was meant to brainwash the masses into following the false Messiah. Okay. The false Messiah. Now, back to the teaching. So since 2005, I have long suspected that there may be an Illuminati plan to fake a resurrection of Pope John Paul II, whose body has been rumored to be frozen in a glass case via cryogenics. Now, what is cryogenics? Well, there's a few links that I've provided. You can go there. Cryogenically frozen means that they freeze your body after you die, and they keep your body preserved so that in the future, if new technology develops to where they can heal your disease, they might be able to reanimate your body. They might be able to bring you back from the dead. Okay. So I believe this is quite possible, given the fact that the science is making all these advances with mRNA, technology. I might have to, I hope I don't get things taken down because I said that. But yeah, they're making advances, right? So is it possible that he will rise again, Pope John Paul II, which would then make him the eighth king, right? If Pope Francis gets disqualified, this is why we always see Pope Francis looking kind of, he has like the sourpuss face when Trump went to visit him at the Vatican. Because what I've understood is that his family is from the 13th Illuminati family, the Merovingians. The Merovingians believe that they are the descendants of Mary Magdalene and Jesus, right? So Trump's family are the Merovingians. And so is Pope John Paul. Pope John Paul, his mother was Jewish, Emily Katz. Now, of course, these people falsely believe that they are descended from Jesus and Mary Magdalene. They talk about this in the movie called The Da Vinci Code with Tom Hanks. It's no accident that Tom Hanks was offering his blood to donate his blood for, research for the V. And Trump also said the same thing. And Trump Jr. tweeted the same thing about Trump's blood. That's no accident. Okay. So if there's rumors, there's the strange connection between Pope John Paul II and Trump. Okay. Trump went to Poland in 2019 with his wife, Melania. They visited the gravesite of Pope John Paul, and they actually prayed to his grave. Also, there was a tweet that Trump made on the 100th birthday of Pope John Paul II. It was in May of 2020, where he said, "Happy birthday to Pope John Paul II. He would have been 100 years old today." Like, no, why is he honoring this Pope, right? And why did Trump go to the shrine of Pope John Paul on June 3rd? June 3rd, 2020, he visited the shrine of Pope John Paul. He and his wife, Melania. Why did they do that? This was the day before he signed this interreligious, basically as an executive order that he signed where it would become illegal for us to speak out against any other religion. It would be illegal for us to speak out against Roman Catholicism, against, the Noahide laws, so this executive order that he signed is not a good thing. It would actually take away our religious freedoms. And people don't realize that because when these presidents do these things, they often do it under the radar. Nobody's looking. Nobody's paying attention. They're so preoccupied with everything else that's going on in the world that when they do these executive orders, it just kind of goes unnoticed. You can see right here in this picture when Trump and his family went to the Vatican wearing black. Notice they're wearing black. What's Trump wearing? Blue. He's the only president that's ever done this. Why is he wearing blue? Because when he went to the Vatican, look at Francis. He's frowning. He's pissed. Why is he mad? Because we watched this video called The Level Playing Field, Game Over. And in that video, the guy who's narrating, his name is Bonfire Guy, and he's got a YouTube channel. In that video, he explains that Trump's visit to the Vatican was to take back the authority over the Vatican City Bank. Basically, he has so much dirt on Pope Francis that he was able to blackmail him and basically take back the authority over the Vatican City Bank. And he did the same thing with Saudi Arabia. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia was accused of crimes against children and manufacturing adrenochrome. So when he went to Saudi Arabia, he was able to do the same thing. That's why the Saudis had a parade, this sword dance. They gave Trump the highest honor that any guest has ever been given in Saudi Arabia. Okay. They did the same thing when he went to Israel. They call him the Messiah. In Israel, they call Trump the Messiah. They named so many things after him. And here, if Trump, right after this visit, he tweeted, he says, "Honor of a lifetime to meet His Holiness Pope Francis. I leave the Vatican more determined than ever to pursue peace in our world." So he's playing nice. Trump's playing nice. He's playing the game. But in reality, Trump has dirt on Pope Francis. I believe Pope Francis's name is, his days are numbered. I believe I could be wrong. I'm not prophesying. I'm just speculating based on the things that I happen to know, based on the research that I've done. Here it is. This was Pope John Paul's 100th birthday. Trump tweeted this in, I think it was 2020, or I can't remember the date, but it was May, I think. He says, today we commemorate the 100th anniversary of the birth of St. John Paul II. Happy birthday. He's saying happy birthday to a dead man? I mean, that's ridiculous. But you see, these global elites, they don't do things by accident. Everything is planned. There's a reason. There's a reason why he tweeted that. And there's a very strange connection. Let me see if I can find that picture of Trump with that giant statue of Pope John Paul. I'm having a hard time finding it at the moment. But yeah, so there's just a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we can't see. Okay. So it is believed that Pope John Paul II and President Donald Trump are genetically related, both being so-called Merovingian Jews, supposedly descended of Mary Magdalene and Jesus. So this is a cult called the Rosicrucians. This cult is described in the film The Da Vinci Code with Tom Hanks. In fact, you can see this on YouTube. There's a YouTube where they actually break it down and they tell you what that whole movie was about. And let's see if I can find, many of you remember all the times we see Trump doing this hand symbol with his, well, it's a small picture. It's too hard to see. See if I can find a better one where he does the V symbol with his hands. Okay. When he does this, okay, this is the Merovingians call the womb of Mary Magdalene, they call it the Holy Grail. Okay. So this upside down V pattern is supposed to be the womb of a woman. It's supposed to symbolize the female energy. This is why in the Freemasonic symbol is a compass. Okay. You can see the compass and you can see the upside down V. That's why Trump does that all the time, because he studies Kabbalah magic. He's been studying it since the 1980s. He's Scottish Rite Freemason. He's constantly flashing the three fingers up and then the six, forming the number 6. When you see the 3 fingers up and the number 6, that's 3 sixes. That's 666. He's constantly flashing that. People don't notice it. They don't see it. Okay. 666. If you go to this website called antichristcalculator.com, and the reason I use that website is because they have 10 different methods of gematria there. Whereas all these other websites, they only have English gematria or they only have Greek gematria. But this website even uses computer ASCII code. So you'll find out that President Donald Trump adds up to 666. William Henry Gates adds up to 666. Dr. Anthony Fauci, 666. And this word right here, which I'm not going to say out loud, the V word, 666. Even the drug that he was pushing, which he and his family own stock in. People get upset when I say that this word adds up to 666. But it's pharmakia. Pharmakia is any pharmaceutical drug, sorcery. Quinine can easily be made from the skins of lemons, oranges, and grapefruits. You can make your own quinine. You don't have to use the pharmaceutical grade. Okay. Even Pope John Paul's name in Latin, Onos Palvos Secundo, adds up to 666. And George Mario, which is the first and middle name of Pope Francis, that adds up to 66. His last name, Bergoglio, also adds up to 666. So there's lots of Antichrist figures here. It's not just one individual. There's lots of people who are displaying themselves in these last days as being anti-Messiah, anti-Christ, right? Here's the picture that I've been looking for. Yeah, this was done on June 3rd, 2020, where Melania and Trump stand before this giant statue of Pope John Paul II. Notice that Melania is wearing black because she's Roman Catholic. Why is Trump wearing navy blue? Okay, he's the only president that's refused to wear black. Why? Because, see, he's from the Merovingian bloodline family, the 13th Illuminati family, and he basically is displaying the fact that, hey, I'm trumping the papacy. He's basically, the QAnon people, the New Agers, they say that there was this guy named Saint Germain, which was supposed to be like some famous guy from the 1500s, but he's supposedly like some new age reincarnation of Lucifer, supposedly. And they say that Trump is a reincarnation of this guy, Saint Germain, and that he has amassed all this wealth, so much wealth, that he can usher in a false jubilee and set the whole world free from bankruptcy. And I believe that's probably going to be something he's going to do as part of the Gesara Act, and people are going to fall for it. Okay. So I do believe that Trump probably will come against the cabal, but not because he's a good guy, but because he wants to be the only villain in charge. Okay. So, this cult of the Rosicrucians is described in the Da Vinci Code movie starring Tom Hanks. Trump's father, his name was Fred Christ Trump. His grandmother's name was Elizabeth Christ Trump. The middle name Christ denotes that they believe they are from the royal bloodline of Christ himself. And thus Donald Trump qualifies to build the third temple in Jerusalem, according to the Zionists. Now, I have another blog called Trump Merovingians and the Illuminati Bloodlines. So in that blog, here I show, this meme that I created. As you can see, this was something that he tweeted on October 5th, 2020, but it was taken down after like a few minutes. It was only up for a few minutes and then it was taken down. Now, Snopes, they're like flaming liberals. They always deny anything that's true. If you go to Snopes, they deny this. But I mean, I believe he said it because look, even his son on the same day tweeted this. He says, imagine this. Trump gets all better and donates his plasma to develop a, corona treatment. And then all the liberals have to get, the V with Trump's blood. Now, he's saying this as a joke, like tongue in cheek, but see, they're not joking. Even President Roosevelt said that nothing in politics is done by accident or by happenstance. Everything in politics is well thought out and well planned. They're sending out a message, letting us know that this phrase right here is true, that they want to infiltrate the people's bloodlines with their Illuminati bloodline. And then you got Tom Hanks tweeting, here's last week's bag of plasma, advertising that he's donating his blood. Why? Because I'm sure that Tom Hanks is part of that same Illuminati bloodline. Okay. And in this graphic I made, I said Nephilim want to contaminate your blood with theirs. Luke 17:26, it says, and as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. In Genesis 6:4, it says there were giants in the earth in those days. That word in Hebrew is nephil, but the plural is Nephilim. And it says, and also after that, when the sons of Elohim came in unto the daughters of Adam, and the word there is men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men. That phrase, mighty men, is Gibor. It means giants, which were of old. Now, the King James says of old, but the Hebrew word is olam. Olam means eternity. Now, in other words, these are supernatural beings. These were men of eternity, supernatural beings, men of renown, men of the name. In other words, they were famous. These are the kind of people you hear about in
Men of reputation.
Yeah, men. You hear about this in Greek mythology, like Hercules and Gilgamesh, that kind of thing, right? Leviticus 7:26-27 says, "You shall eat no manner of blood. Whosoever eats any manner of blood, even that soul shall be cut off from his people." This is why Yahuwah does not want us taking these things, because they deliberately are putting their plasma in there because they want to form a race of hybrids. Okay. Acts 15:29 says that you abstain from meats offered to idols and from blood and from things strangled. So, yeah, Trump's family is from the Merovingian bloodline. They believe they are descendants of Christ and Mary Magdalene. Okay. And so in this blog, it's a very short blog, I talk about this. Okay. So going back to the blog about the beast. Okay. So is it possible that they're going to bring Pope John Paul back from the dead? I don't know, but it would certainly make sense. So I'm wondering, will Trump form some kind of miraculous, treatment V that's going to make people become immortal? I know he took credit for the V, calling himself the father of the V. Will he do something like that? Will Trump be the one that will be instrumental in bringing Pope John Paul back from the dead, and they will worship the beast because he did miracles, lying, signs, and wonders? I don't know. I'm only speculating, but it's possible, right? And so, as I already said, on June 2nd, 2020, Trump visited a shrine built to Pope John Paul II the day after he signed an executive order making it illegal, making it a hate crime to speak out against any religion, specifically Roman Catholicism and Judaism. Those are the two religions that he defends. Okay. And you can see it right here. Here it is. It's Trump signs order on international religious freedom after JP2 shrine visit. So people need to understand that the two beasts in Revelation 13, they're right in front of our eyes. There are so many things being done in plain sight and people don't see it. People think, oh, the beast hasn't appeared yet. The beast hasn't been revealed yet. Listen, the beast has been right in front of our eyes the whole time. Okay, the whole time. You just need to know what to look for. And I also want to recommend this movie. It's called The Belly of the Beast. It's on Vimeo. This is just the trailer. Okay, this is the official trailer for it. But in this video, they describe what is taking place at a presidential inauguration. Okay, and people need to understand what was taking place on January the 6th, 2021, when Trump was standing underneath that rotunda, the Capitol dome, that he was displaying himself as the Apollyon who's coming up out of the bottomless pit. He was displaying himself as the one that's going to be born of the womb, because they believe in esoteric religion that the Capitol dome is the womb of Isis. He purposely planned these events on January the 6th because in the Roman Catholic religion, January 6th is called the Feast of the Epiphany, when the Magi went to visit the child in Bethlehem. So what he was doing on that day, January 6th, was part of a sex magic ritual. Most people wouldn't understand, but that's what was taking place. In fact, let me see if I can find Capitol Dome. So I've got a blog called The Mystery of Behind the Insurrection at the Capitol Dome. Most people don't understand what was going on there, but you see, Trump was very carefully orchestrating this. Because why? He's being accused of insurrection. Who else was being accused of insurrection? Our Messiah. That's why they arrested him and let Barabbas go free. Why did they orchestrate this? Because they're trying to make Trump looked like the real Messiah who's falsely accused of insurrection. This is why on the Feast of the Epiphany, which is January the 6th, they planned the Million MAGA March. MAGA is the fifth degree in Satanism. And you can see that. MAGA or Magus is the fifth degree, highest degree in Anton LaVey's Church of Satan. Okay? Trump is playing the role of the magician. Even Marina Abramovich said it in an interview. They asked her what she thought of Trump. She said, Trump is the magician. He's bringing in a global awakening. Okay? So the MAGA, the Magi, the word Magi in Latin or Greek means fellow magicians. The MAGA hat is an English derivative of magus, which has to do with magic or magician. See, this is what was going on January the 6th. People don't understand, but he was letting us know he's the one that's going to rise up out of the bottomless pit, that Apollyon is going to possess him. And January 6th was a sex magic ritual. Most people don't recognize that. They think, oh, it's just terrible. It's just terrible how they persecute that poor man. Yeah, it's all done on purpose to make people feel sorry for him.
And in case you misunderstand the term of sex magic, it's not that it's some ritualistic thing where they're actually having sex, doing sex acts, although there is that in Satanism. What they really mean by that is the obelisk is the phallus, that the rotunda is the womb.
Yep.
They're imbuing meaning upon those objects. It's like saying we're using representation to cast spells based on the represented significance of what we're declaring these things to represent.
Yep.
That was repetitive, but I think you get it.
Yep. So this is important to understand, because what's happening now is that they're naming a train station in Jerusalem after Trump. Now, some people say there's not going to be a temple in Jerusalem that the little horn will sit in. I definitely believe there will be. I think it's going to be like Solomon's temple. That's what the Illuminati want. They want a replication of Solomon's temple. I definitely believe that's what they're after. Because why? Paul the Apostle says that the anti-Messiah will sit in the temple of Elohim, showing himself that he is Elohim. Of course, we know he's not really Elohim, but the anti-Mashiach will try and pretend that he is Elohim. Okay, but the Greek word, if you go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the Greek word there for temple, right? Go there, temple, that he sits in the temple of Elohim. That word temple is naos. And if you look up the meaning of that word, it just means the two sections of the temple, excluding the outer court. So it's only the holy place and the Holy of Holies. It's only the two sections. Then when you go to Revelation 11, it says the same thing. It says, there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the Malach, the angel, stood saying, rise and measure the naos, the temple of Elohim, and the altar. So there's the temple and the altar. So it's going to be more than just an altar. It's going to be both a temple and an altar. And them that worship therein, but the court which is without the temple, in other words, outside of the temple, leave out and measure it not. For it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. So yes, there is going to be a temple, and Hasatan is going to possess the guy who builds this temple, and he's going to sit there, and he's going to say that he is Elohim. So that concludes the teaching.
Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. We hope you've enjoyed today's broadcast and that you are encouraged in your walk with Messiah. For more teachings, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified of our latest content. Visit Maria's many blogs at doubleportioninheritance.com. That's doubleportioninheritance.com. This ministry is made possible by the prayers and support of listeners like you. To make a donation by PayPal or Venmo.com, use the email address doubleportioninheritance@gmail.com. That's doubleportioninheritance@gmail.com. On behalf of Maria and Gary at Double Portion Inheritance Ministries, may Yahuwah bless you.